Going back, to our theme, dealing with local or national shocks, I thought it would be quite appropriate to let you know a little bit how we deal with disruption of supply to consumers, because that is our business we're in. We want to make sure that you also as consumers, and not only urban but also rural consumers, get access in a continuity and also in a way that produce are affordable, are available in a continuum, and that is one of the main objectives of the companies. We call that wherever, whatever you want, and that starts very much at the supply chain. And as many know, yesterday I had the privilege to have one intervention talking about how we are working together with smallholders, mainly here also in Africa. I wanted to share with you how we are really building more resilience in these supply chains to have continuous supply to you as consumers. And let me start with looking into the way we are organized in what we call Farmer Connect. Farmer Connect is a program that has started since ever, in fact, Nestle exists, always having had a direct connection with farmers that is supplying, and we call that the Nestle way of an operations management system, starting with the farmer and ending up somewhere on your fork, on your plate as a consumer. And this Farmer Connect deals directly with a number of producers in many, many countries. I will tell you exactly where it is. And this goes into mainly ensuring throughout these value chains the transparency and the traceability. So you know where it's coming from, how it has been made, and what is in. So that goes also into having a clear control on quality, safety, and looking into volume growth. Having this access to those producers means that you can also impact not only the practices but also the growth, in many cases, of those smallholders. And one of my very particular, and I would say, yes, a passion is to make out of many smallholders real agripreneurs for the future. That has a very direct link also to the swings of pricing, because if you do have half a dozen of intermediaries in the supply chain, you're exposed to much more price shocks than if you have a direct link. I can tell you that in 2007 or 2008 on milk supply chains, if you were exposed to the external sourcing on the world markets, you had swings within 2-3 months up to 280%. Whereas with our farmers, where we have this Farmer Connect approach, we had swings that was lower than 20%. So this really has a big advantage in building more resilience in a supply chain, and definitely reduces transaction costs and helps our brand really to also communicate with you on the so many activities we have, for instance, in the beverage area, on the Nescafe plan, we call that, or on chocolate products. This is about the cocoa plan. So I will give you an insight to two of those supply chains, and I take you to the Punjab on both sides in Pakistan and in India, where in fact this continuity on supply chain improvements is really leading to a better quality, a better income, more resilience in terms of having access to safe and quality raw materials. And that also goes into reducing waste, because the other day there was a discussion about waste. And I think that definitely wasting food is not only close to a sin, but it is definitely very bad for your pocket. Because waste has a price, and has a very high price indeed. And another one is about, for instance, quality feed and fodders and finished products related to aflatoxin, a very, very big problem here on the continent also, where through the working with farmers and through impacting them and teaching them on good agricultural practices, you can tremendously reduce all those negative impacts on food safety, on agricultural materials, having a great positive impact on the value of the finished products in terms of nutritional safety and nutritional content. So another one is specifically now here in Ghana or in Nigeria, where since more than 10 years we're interacting, always with the help of local knowledge carriers. In this case, it is here the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture that is based in Nigeria, headquartered in Ibadan, but working in about 16 countries here, where in fact we are now able, after 10 years of working in a very intensive way with local farmers, to get grains locally into our supply chains, and we do not need to import anymore to African countries raw materials. So that is, for instance, a clear principle of the company where we say we want to get local access to raw materials for the produce that are being consumed also on the continent. And we are now somewhere between 80 to 85, 87% of locally, regionally produced raw materials that has a tremendous impact also in rural communities, obviously, as rural development, but there is less shocks, there is less stress, for instance, on international pricing, and there is also less stress on supply chains because logistics are easier to handle. You're not exposed to currency fluctuations, for instance, and so on and so forth. And the good news here is about this aflatoxin 4-PPP, for those who are very much into food safety. These are European norms. These are really the toughest norms to comply with. These norms are today achievable here in Africa. And these supply chains are run by more than 22,000 farmers and are run by local people. So all those things can be done with local management, with local knowledge, and everything has been put together here in Africa to really please consumers and to create a market for smallholder farmers that today boosts something like $20 million equivalent back into rural areas. And that is what we call, from a food company perspective, how you can build resilience into a society where you are exposed to a lot of stresses, where you're exposed to weather stresses, where you're exposed eventually also to political stresses and then economical stresses. But as you see, it is absolutely possible to do so. But I also show you 2004. This is not done overnight. And this definitely cannot be done in a program, where you get maybe funding for 2 years or 3 years, and then you're walking away. So keep in mind that if you want to build resilience in whatever food system, may it be local, national, international, this is a very severe engagement, and you need 5 to 10 years at least. Otherwise, you're missing really your targets. And we have started about 15 years ago to cluster a lot of things together under this initiative. We call it Sustainable Agriculture Initiative at Nestle, where we are mainly looking into everything that has been said also by previous speakers: land use, water, energy, climate. Absolutely necessary to better understand what is happening here on the continent, but then focusing on people. Because even if you have all the necessary information available, if you're not able really to take the right actions out of that information and enable individuals, you will fail also. And that is the reason why we made this approach extremely simple, by always asking everybody at every level of education: do we waste, do we pollute, or do we destroy our natural resources when using land, for instance, for agriculture purposes? So this setup of very simple principles is the only way also to work together, in our case, with almost now 700,000 smallholders, and then looking into what we call the sustainable intensification of agriculture, where in fact you not only have to make a production system more resilient, but also looking into what is this system bringing in terms of income to retain eventually the next generation of farmers. That is definitely at stake here on the continent, and having a very close look to really striving for zero waste. And that is a last snapshot on where we are on our Sustainable Agriculture Initiative and on Farmer Connect worldwide. I just want to pick out maybe one aspect here. I strived yesterday already in a panel about training. You know, the stewards of natural resources, that is not the Minister of Agriculture or the President of a country or we or you, it's the farmers. So if you are not winning the heart and the brain of these individuals to change, and mainly changing, taking the unsustainable practices out of their day-to-day and changing for sustainable ones, we cannot really go for resilience either. And that is the reason we have to train, because nobody is training these people. And we will train more because it's necessary. But I mentioned yesterday that we have failed for 15 years altogether to mainly strive for the second Millennium Development Goal, that is. What is the second Millennium Development Goal? You don't know it either, you see? Primary education. And, you know, we can do a lot of research, we can do a lot of development, we can do whatever, but if these people who have to change their non-sustainable practices are not enabled to do so, we will fail. So please help me personally, because that is one of my passions now, to bring, you know, to all these audiences that we have to build back. And if we're talking about beyond 2015, what is next? Just continue to build again agricultural schools and primary education into rural areas. That is the only way really to make sure that we have also more resilience in agriculture production systems and in communities. And another task I have here is really to make on that map, as you see, definitely Africa more greener, in order that one day we may say, who knows, 100% of all our raw materials that are built into our finished products are really coming out of the African continent, because I'm so convinced that Africa can really feed itself. And maybe even
Hans, may I ask you to wrap up, please?
Feed other people in other geographies of this world. Thank you very much.